The wind off the bitter roots cut through wool like a knife through cheesecloth. Late January 1887, and the frost hadn't broken in 43 days. Meredith Caldwell stood at the auction yard gate, her children pressed against her patched skirts. Isaac, 9 years old, watched the crowd with eyes too sharp for a boy. Lily May, 6, clutched her mother's hand, fingers white from cold and fear. The smell hit first. Manure, wet hay, wood smoke from the auctioneer's stove. Then the sound. Cattle lowing, boots stamping frozen mud, men's low voices betting on lots. Caleb Thorne stood on the platform, hammer raised mid-swing. Meredith pushed through the rail. "Mr. Thorne." Her voice cracked across the yard. She held up a framed deed. Glass cracked at the corner. A thin gold ring caught the pale light. "My children haven't eaten proper in 3 days. Will you sell these instead of my cattle?" The hammer froze. Silence dropped like a stone down a well. Vernon Haskell's gold watch glinted at the far rail. He checked the time, jaw tight. Wind howled through the cabin, chinking, a thin whistle that never stopped. Meredith poured bean stew into tin cups, the metal so cold it burned her fingertips. 3 ladles, that was all that remained in the pot. Isaac climbed down from the loft, barefoot despite the frost. Lily May sat at the table, her breath fogging. The knock came hard. 3 strikes. Meredith opened the door. Vernon Haskell stood on the threshold, coat buttoned to his throat, hat pulled low. He didn't wait for an invitation. His boots tracked mud across the swept floor. "Meredith." He removed his hat but didn't sit. The gold watch chain across his vest caught the lamplight. She stayed standing. "Vernon." He reached inside his coat, withdrew a folded document, placed it on the table beside Lily May's cup. 90-day foreclosure notice. Bank's decision. Nothing personal. Her hands stilled on the ladle. "Thomas paid every season." "Paid late. The contract's clear. 3 months arrears constitutes default." He unfolded the paper, tapped a clause with one gloved finger. "Land, livestock, equipment. Total debt, $1,400. You have until April 20th to settle the balance or vacate the premises." Isaac's small hands tightened on the loft ladder. Meredith could feel his eyes on her back. "I'll sell cattle. The ring. Whatever it takes." Vernon's mouth pressed thin. Cattle won't fetch enough in winter, sentiment even less. His gaze drifted to the framed deed above the mantel. "You could save yourself considerable trouble. Sign the land over now. I'll give you $200. Enough to start fresh somewhere warmer." 200. Her voice came flat. "For 160 acres. With liens, it's generous." The fire popped. Lily May's spoon scraped the bottom of her empty cup. Meredith stepped closer, voice dropping. "That land has Thomas's name on it. Mine too. You don't get to erase us with a pen stroke and call it mercy." Vernon replaced his hat. His watch emerged from his vest pocket. He checked it, the case clicking open and shut. The sound filled the small room. "Spring thaw brings the judge. Circuit Court. 90 days, Meredith. Not one more." He moved toward the door, paused. "Children shouldn't have to watch their mother lose everything. Think about that." The door closed. Wind swallowed his footsteps. Isaac climbed down the rest of the way. "Mama, will Uncle Vernon take our house?" She knelt, pulled him close, his ribs pressed sharp through his nightshirt. "Not if I can help it." Lily May whimpered. Meredith drew her daughter onto her lap, wrapping both children in her shawl. Outside, a wolf howled. The pines answered with a sound like breaking bones. The fire burned low, coals glowing red as wounds. Meredith stood at the mantel, fingers pressed to the deed's glass. The frame was simple pine, but Thomas had carved their initials in the corner. M.W. plus T.J.C. The document read, "Thomas James Caldwell and Meredith Whitmore. Caldwell, proprietors, 160 acres, Section 14, Township 7 North, Montana Territory. Registered February 18th, 1885. Her maiden name, inked beside his. She remembered watching him practice the signature in lamplight, tongue between his teeth, determined to get the flourish right. He'd signed it 3 times before he was satisfied. "Insurance," he'd said. "So no one can say you don't belong here." She traced the loops of his handwriting. The glass was cold beneath her fingertips. Isaac appeared at her elbow. "Why does the paper say your old name?" "Because your father wanted everyone to know this land is mine too, not just his." "But Uncle Vernon says—" "Uncle Vernon says a lot of things." She kept her voice steady. "Truth is, when you own land, you sign your name, both names, so there's no confusion." Lily May stirred in her sleep, curled beneath a quilt by the hearth. Her lips moved soundlessly. Meredith thought of the stew, how thin it had been, how the children's cheeks had hollowed over the winter. She looked back at the deed. The signature stared back, Thomas's hand steady even in ink. He'd made that loop unique, she realized. The tail of the C in Caldwell swept upward, almost defiant. She'd never seen anyone else write it that way. Her throat tightened. "Mama?" Isaac's voice was small. "Are we going to lose it?" She pulled him close, kissed the top of his head. He smelled like wood smoke and cold. "Your father signed this right. He knew what he was doing." She whispered to the frame, to the ghost of her husband's careful hand. "You signed it right. I'll prove it." Wind rattled the shutters. Somewhere in the dark, an owl called. The lamp flickered. The deed's glass reflected her face, pale and hollow-eyed. But the signature, Thomas's signature, stayed clear. The bank smelled of leather and stale cigar ash. Meredith's boots left mud on the Persian rug, dark streaks that made the clerk wince. She didn't apologize. Vernon sat behind a mahogany desk, pen poised over a ledger. He didn't rise when she entered. The clerk, a young man with ink-stained fingers, hovered by the filing cabinets, eyes downcast. "Mrs. Caldwell." Vernon's voice was flat. "I assume you've reconsidered." She placed the wedding ring on the desk. The gold caught the lamplight, thin and worn. "I need a loan, against this, enough to buy time." Vernon lifted the ring between thumb and forefinger, tilted it toward the window. Outside, snow fell in lazy spirals. He squinted at the band, turned it once, twice. $8, maybe 10 at auction. "It's worth 40. To whom?" He dropped it. The ring spun, wobbled, clattered flat. The sound echoed. "No one's buying cinnamon in winter, Meredith. The territory's full of widows with rings to sell." Her jaw clenched. She forced the words out. "Then extend the foreclosure. 6 more months. I'll sell cattle in spring when prices—" "No." Vernon opened a drawer, withdrew a second document, slid it across the polished wood. "However, I can offer a solution. $200 for the homestead, cash, today." She stared at the paper. Her vision swam. "That land's worth $1,500. Not with liens, not with unpaid notes." His fingers drummed the desk. "You're underwater, Meredith. The kindest thing I can do is offer you an exit. Kindest." The word tasted like ash. Vernon leaned back, fingers steepled. His watch emerged from his vest pocket, the case engraved with initials she couldn't read from where she stood. He checked the time, let the case snap shut. The click was sharp, final. "Or you could refuse. Force a public auction. Let the whole county watch you lose everything in front of your children." He paused. "Dignity has a price. Pay it now or pay it later, your choice." The clerk shifted by the cabinets. A ledger slipped, thudded against the floor. No one moved to pick it up. Meredith snatched the ring, closed her fist around it, the metal bit into her palm. "I'll see you at the auction, Vernon." She turned toward the door. "Meredith," his voice followed her. "When this is over, don't say I didn't warn you." The door slammed. Outside, the wind cut through her shawl like teeth. The land office reeked of mildew and ink. Files stacked to the ceiling, some tied with string, others spilling loose pages onto the floor. A single clerk, older, spectacles perched on a sunburned nose, looked up from his desk. "Help you, ma'am?" Meredith stepped to the counter. "I need to see the Caldwell deed, Section 14, Township 7 North, registered February 1885. The clerk grunted, rose, moved to a filing cabinet against the far wall. His keys jangled. He thumbed through folders, muttering under his breath. Caldwell, here." He laid the document flat on the counter. Meredith leaned close. Her breath caught. 2 signatures. Thomas James Caldwell, the familiar loops, the upward sweep of the sea, and beneath it, Vernon Haskell, co-proprietor. "No," her voice came out strangled. "That's not... Thomas never signed with Vernon. It was just us, him and me." The clerk adjusted his spectacles, peered at the paper. "Says here, it was witnessed by a Mr. Henry Pemberton, registered February 18th, 1885, 2 proprietors listed." He tapped the line. "Legal and binding." "Where's the original, the one we signed?" "Mr. Haskell retrieved it last week. Bank policy during foreclosure review, for safekeeping." The clerk's tone was matter-of-fact. "This here's the registered copy, holds the same legal weight." Meredith's hands shook. She gripped the counter's edge. Her maiden name, Meredith Whitmore Caldwell, was absent. Only Thomas's name, and Vernon's, The flourish on the C was wrong, too flat, too careful. He forged it, she whispered. The clerk frowned. Ma'am, that's a serious accusation. If you believe there's been fraud, you'll need to present evidence to Judge Cross when he arrives for circuit court. That'll be late March, maybe April, depending on the roads. When in April? Can't say for certain. Thaw's unpredictable. He folded the document, slid it back toward the cabinet. But if you're claiming forgery, you'll need the original and witnesses. Testimony alone won't overturn a registered deed. Her knees weakened. She gripped the counter harder. April, the deadline. Vernon had taken the original. He controlled the paper, all of it. Ma'am? The clerk's voice sounded distant. You all right? She turned, stumbled toward the door. The brass bell above the frame clanged as she pushed through. Cold air hit her face. Behind her, the clerk called, Ma'am, you forgot your... But she was already gone. The street stretched long and empty. Snow fell harder now, erasing her footprints as fast as she made them. Vernon's watch ticked somewhere in her memory. 90 days. Not one more. She had no deed, no proof, no time. The wind howled. Meredith pulled her shawl tighter and walked into the white. The auction yard stank of wet hay and manure. Frozen mud cracked beneath Meredith's boots as she approached the pens. Her 4 cattle huddled in the corner, ribs visible through patchy winter coats, eyes dull. Caleb Thorne crouched at the rail, one massive hand resting on the top board. He didn't look up when she stopped beside him. These ain't ready, he said. His voice was low, rough as gravel. They need spring grass. Another month, maybe 2. I don't have 2 months. He stood, 6'4", shoulders broad as a barn door. His face was weathered, scarred along the jaw from some old wound. Gray streaked his hair at the temples. He studied her with eyes that had seen too much. Vernon's behind this. It wasn't a question. She nodded. Caleb removed his hat, ran a hand through his hair. My wife, God rest her, lost property to a bank misunderstanding 5 years back. Vernon was the loan officer then, too. His jaw worked. Paperwork vanished overnight. Suddenly she owed double what we'd borrowed. By the time we figured out what happened, the land was gone. He replaced his hat, pulling it low. She died that winter. Pneumonia. But I always figured it was the heartbreak that did it. Meredith's throat closed. A ranch hand passed with a bucket, nodded to Caleb, kept walking. The sound of sloshing water faded. I'll delay your auction, Caleb said. Mark these cattle unfit for sale. They're underweight, that's true enough. It'll buy you a few weeks. He'll know you're helping me. Let him. Caleb's eyes hardened. Mrs. Caldwell, why's Vernon pushing this sale so hard? It's winter. No one buys land in winter unless there's a reason. She looked toward the distant mountains, their peaks white against gray sky. Railway spur? Coming through my section? He told Thomas to sell last year. Thomas refused. Caleb spat into the mud. Figures. Vernon always did have a nose for money that wasn't his. He turned to face her fully. You need to prove that deed's a forgery. Find the original, or find someone who witnessed the real signing. Vernon took the original, and the witness... She hesitated. Henry Pemberton, but he's been dead 3 years. His widow still runs the mercantile. Hope flickered, fragile. You think she'd remember? Henry kept records, obsessive about it, used to drive Ruth half mad with his filing. Caleb picked up a rope from the fence post, coiled it slowly. If he witnessed your deed, he'd have noted it somewhere. Ruth would know. Meredith's pulse quickened. I'll ask her. Do it soon. Judge Cross won't wait for evidence that doesn't exist. Caleb hung the rope on a nail. And Mrs. Caldwell? Don't go to Vernon's bank again, not alone. Man like that, he's dangerous when he's cornered. She nodded. As she turned to leave, Caleb called after her. One more thing. When this goes to hearing, it'll be public. Auction yard, most likely. Judge likes to hold court where folks can see. He met her eyes. That means everyone in the county will be watching. You ready for that? Meredith thought of her children's hollow cheeks, the empty stew pot, Vernon's watch ticking in her memory. I don't have a choice. Caleb's expression softened, just barely. Then we'll make sure you're ready. The mercantile bell chimed as Meredith pushed through the door. Warmth hit her face. A wood stove crackled in the corner, and the smell of dried herbs and coffee beans filled the air. Ruth Pemberton looked up from her account book, silver bun immaculate despite the hour. Meredith, Ruth's voice gentled. She set down her pen. You look frozen through. Sit. But Meredith stayed standing. Isaac and Lily Mae pressed close to her skirts, their eyes wide. They'd been silent the whole walk into town. "Mrs. Pemberton, I need to sell this." She placed the ring on the counter. Ruth lifted it, tilted it beneath the oil lamp. Light caught the worn gold. "It's lovely. Henry gave me one similar." Her voice softened. "I can display it in the window. Someone might pay fair." "How much?" Ruth hesitated. Her fingers turned the ring slowly. "Winner's lien. Maybe $12. 20 if we're fortunate." Meredith's shoulders sagged. Ruth glanced at the children. Their faces were pressed to the candy jar, breath fogging the glass. She rose, fetched 2 peppermint sticks, placed them in their small hands. "On the house." Lily Mae's eyes went wide. Isaac whispered, "Thank you, ma'am." Ruth returned the ring to Meredith. "Keep it for now. Let me ask around first." She paused, studying Meredith's face. "What's really wrong?" The words spilled out. "Vernon filed a foreclosure notice. Says Thomas signed the deed with him as co-proprietor. But that's not true. It was just me and Thomas, our names together." Her voice cracked. "He forged it. I know he did, but I can't prove it." Ruth's expression shifted. Something flickered behind her eyes. "Your husband's deed? Henry witnessed it, didn't he?" Meredith blinked. "I don't know. Thomas handled the paperwork." Ruth tapped the counter, thinking. "Henry witnessed dozens of deeds, kept meticulous records, said you couldn't trust a man like Vernon Haskell with ink and paper." Her mouth pressed thin. "I should look through Henry's things. He had trunks full of ledgers, copies of every contract he ever signed." Hope surged, fragile and sharp. "Would you? Give me a few days. The trunks are in the back room. Haven't touched them since he passed." Ruth's gaze was steady. "If Henry witnessed your deed, there'll be a record. I'll find it." Meredith's throat tightened. "Thank you." Ruth reached across the counter, squeezed her hand. "My Henry always said the truth has a way of surfacing, like creek water in spring." She released Meredith's fingers. "We just have to dig for it." Outside, the wind picked up. Snow swirled past the window, but inside, for the first time in days, warmth touched Meredith's chest. She wasn't alone. Spring sun broke through the clouds for the first time in weeks, but the church steps remained cold. Women gathered in tight clusters, shawls pulled close despite the warming air. Their voices carried, a hum of judgment wrapped in courtesy. Meredith climbed toward them, Isaac and Lily Mae's hands in hers. The children's Sunday clothes were patched at the elbows, hems let down as far as the fabric allowed. The circle tightened as she approached. Mrs. Henley spoke first, her voice pitched to Carrie. "Meredith, how unfortunate. About the homestead." Another woman, Mrs. Dalton, the blacksmith's wife, adjusted her hat, feathers bobbed. "I heard Vernon offered you a settlement. A generous one, considering." Her eyes flicked to the children. "You refused?" Meredith's jaw clenched. "The offer was theft." Silence dropped like a stone. Eyes darted, skirts rustled. Mrs. Henley leaned closer to Mrs. Dalton, her whisper loud enough for the whole group. "Living on borrowed land. Shameful. Dragging those babies through it when she could have taken the money and started fresh." Isaac's fists curled. Meredith felt his small body tense. A child darted between the women, the Dalton boy, 8 years old and mean as a kicked dog. He shoved Lily Mae hard. She stumbled, caught herself on the railing, her palms scraping wood. "Your mama's a liar," the boy sneered. "My pa says so." Isaac lunged. Meredith grabbed his collar, yanked him back. "Not here." Lily Mae's lip trembled. She pressed against her mother's skirt, silent. Mrs. Dalton pulled her son close, as if protecting him. "Well, children hear things." The church door opened. Ruth Pemberton stepped out, a basket over her arm. Her eyes swept the scene. The closed circle, Meredith standing apart, the children's hollow faces. Ruth moved to the far end of the steps. She set her basket down, poured tea from a thermos into a tin cup. Alone. Mrs. Henley sniffed. "We all must live with our choices, Meredith. A woman in your position. Perhaps remarriage would be wiser than fighting the inevitable." The circle began to descend the steps, skirts sweeping past. One by one, they flowed around Meredith like water around a stone. She stood frozen, her children pressed to her sides. When the last woman disappeared around the corner, Ruth crossed the steps. She pressed the warm cup into Meredith's hands. "Drink." Meredith's fingers shook. The tea smelled of mint and honey. "They're afraid," Ruth said quietly. "Their husbands owe Vernon money. Fear makes people cruel." Isaac's voice came small. "Mama, can we go home?" Meredith drained the cup, handed it back. "Yes." They walked down the steps together, her, the children, and Ruth. The road stretched long and muddy. Behind them the church bell rang, calling the faithful to worship, but Meredith kept walking. Meredith pushed through the bank door after hours. The clerk, Mr. Pruitt, was packing a crate. Ledgers, a framed certificate, a small clock. His hands moved quickly, his face pale. Vernon stood by the vault, arms crossed. "Mrs. Caldwell, this is highly irregular." "You're moving the auction date." Her voice shook. "Caleb said you demanded it." Vernon sighed, as if she were a tiresome child. "Your cattle are unfit. Mr. Thorne was correct, but the land auction, that proceeds as scheduled." "April 20th. He paused. "Unless you'd prefer an earlier date, I can arrange March 15th, give you less time to struggle." "Why?" She stepped closer. "What's so important about my 160 acres? His smile was thin, cold. "You really don't know." He moved to his desk, unfolded a surveyor's map. Red ink marked a line through Section 14, her property. The line continued north, branching toward the territorial capital. "Railway spur," Vernon said. "Approved last fall. Quiet for now. But come summer, every acre along this route triples in value. Quadruples, maybe." He tapped the map. "Your land sits at the junction point. Prime real estate." Her breath stopped. "You knew, before Thomas died." "I advised him to sell. He refused." Vernon refolded the map. "Sentimental fool. Said the land was for his children, that it meant something beyond money." His voice dripped contempt. "Meaning doesn't pay debts." Mr. Pruitt cleared his throat. He set the crate on the counter. "Mr. Haskell, I'm resigning, effective immediately." Vernon's head snapped toward him. "Mr. Pruitt, that's premature. The ledgers don't balance." Pruitt's voice was steady despite his shaking hands. He placed a ring of keys beside the crate. "You've been moving money between accounts, covering shortfalls with deposits that aren't yours." He looked at Meredith. "He needs her land sale to replace missing funds before the territorial audit. That's why he's pushing so hard." The room tilted. Meredith gripped the desk edge. "You're embezzling." Vernon's smile vanished. "Speculation, temporary reallocation of resources. The railway investment required liquidity. It's perfectly legal. It's theft." Pruitt lifted the crate. "I won't be part of it, and I won't lie for you when the auditors come." He walked toward the door, paused. "Mrs. Caldwell, get a lawyer, a good one." The door closed behind him. The lock clicked. Meredith and Vernon stood alone. The vault's metal gleamed in the lamplight. Outside, the sun set, orange bleeding into purple. Vernon's hand moved to his vest pocket. The watch emerged. He checked it, the case clicking open. The sound echoed. "You have a choice, Meredith. Let this go. Take the 200, disappear." His eyes were flat. "Or fight. And when the audit comes, when they investigate, when they dig through every transaction." He leaned forward. "You'll lose the land anyway, but you'll also watch your children suffer through months of legal hell. Is that what Thomas would have wanted?" Her hands curled into fists. "Don't you dare speak his name." Vernon snapped the watch shut. "April 20th, unless you sign today." He slid a blank deed across the desk. "Choose." She looked at the paper, at his cold eyes, at the map with its red line cutting through her life. "I'll see you in court." She turned toward the door. Vernon's voice followed her, soft and sharp. "If you force the audit, you'll take me down, but you'll lose everything first. Your land, your children's future, everything Thomas died for." He paused. "Choose carefully, Meredith. Some battles aren't worth winning." The door slammed behind her. Outside, the street was empty. Mud sucked at her boots. The sky bled dark. Vernon's watch ticked in her memory, counting down the days. She had nothing. No deed, no proof, no allies except a widowed shopkeeper and an auctioneer who'd already risked enough. The wind cut through her shawl. For the first time, Meredith wondered if Vernon was right. Maybe some battles couldn't be won. The sun rose red over the pines. Meredith stood at the stove, stirring weak porridge. Isaac climbed down from the loft, boots in hand. "Mama, I want to help." She turned. His face was serious, too serious for 9 years old. "You are helping. You fetch water. You watch your sister. I mean really help, with Uncle Vernon." Her chest tightened. Isaac, I heard what he said about the railway, about taking our house. His voice cracked. Pa wouldn't have let him. Pa would have fought. Meredith knelt, took his face in her hands. Your pa did fight. Every day he worked this land, he fought. And now it's my turn. But you're just... He stopped. Just what? Just you, and he's got the bank and the papers, and everyone's scared of him. She pulled him close. His small body shook. You're right. He has all that, but he doesn't have the truth. She released him, stood. And the truth matters, even when it's hard to prove. Isaac wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. What if we can't prove it? Then we keep trying. She moved to the mantel, lifted the framed deed down, held it in the morning light. Thomas's signature stared back, that distinctive flourish on the C. Something caught her eye, a smudge on the glass, low in the corner. She tilted the frame. Not a smudge, a fingerprint, small, recent. Isaac, were you looking at this? He nodded. Last night, after you fell asleep, I wanted to, I don't know, see what Pa wrote. Did you touch anything else? Just the frame. He hesitated. And the papers in the barn loft. I was looking for, I thought maybe Pa left something. Something that would help. Her pulse quickened. What papers? In the trunk, under the old saddle blanket. She grabbed her shawl. Show me. They crossed the yard. The barn smelled of hay and old leather. Isaac climbed the loft ladder, Meredith right behind. He pushed aside a blanket, revealed a battered trunk. Inside, old tack, a broken bridle, moth-eaten wool, and beneath it all, a folder tied with string. Meredith opened it, her breath caught. Practice sheets, dozens of them. Thomas's handwriting, over and over. Thomas James Caldwell, Thomas J. Caldwell, T.J. Caldwell. And on the last page, Thomas James Caldwell and Meredith Whitmore Caldwell. The flourish on every C was identical. That upward sweep, almost defiant, unique. She held the paper to the light streaming through the loft boards. The ink was faded but clear. Your father knew, she whispered. He practiced this signature so many times because he knew it had to be perfect, had to be unmistakable. She looked at Isaac. He left us proof. The boy's eyes widened. That's Pa's handwriting, real handwriting, not forgery. Yes, she folded the papers carefully, tucked them inside her bodice. This shows how your father signed, how he always signed. And Vernon's version? She remembered the deed at the land office. The C, too flat, too careful. Vernon's version doesn't match. Isaac climbed down the ladder, Meredith following. At the barn door, she paused, looked back at the trunk. Thomas had known. Somehow, he'd known. Thank you, she whispered to the empty loft, to the ghost of her husband's careful hand. Outside, the morning air smelled of thawing earth. The first crocus pushed through mud near the fence line, purple and fragile. Spring was coming, and with it, a fight. Ruth's parlor smelled of lavender and old paper. The trunk sat open on the floor, its contents spread across the rug, ledgers, journals, receipt books dating back 15 years. Meredith knelt beside Ruth, her hands sorting through pages. Are you sure he'd have kept a copy? Henry kept copies of everything. Ruth's voice was firm. Drove me half mad, but he always said the man who controls the records controls the truth. She lifted a leather journal, blew dust from its cover. This is 1885, February, March. She flipped pages. Her finger traced down a column of dates. Here. Ruth's voice sharpened. February 18th, 1885. Witness deed signing, Caldwell property, section 14. Present, Thomas Caldwell, Meredith Whitmore Caldwell, Henry Pemberton, witness. She looked up. And there's a note. Vernon Haskell arrived late. Attempted to witness, but signing already complete. Appeared agitated. Meredith's heart hammered. He tried to insert himself into the signing. Even then, Ruth read further. Caldwell refused VH as suggestion to add him as co-proprietor. Stated clearly, land for wife and children only. VH left without signing. She closed the journal. Henry didn't trust him. Kept this record because he suspected Vernon would try something eventually. This proves Vernon wasn't on the original deed, that he lied. It's evidence, strong evidence. Ruth stood, brushing dust from her skirt. But we need the original deed, the one you and Thomas actually signed. Henry's journal supports your claim, but a judge will want to see both documents side by side. Meredith's hope faltered. Vernon has it. He took it from the land office. Ruth's expression hardened. Then we make him produce it. In court. In public. She placed the journal in Meredith's hands. Take this. Guard it. And when Judge Cross arrives, you show him every word. Outside, rain began to fall. The first warm rain of spring. It drummed against the parlor window, washing away the last of the snow. Meredith held the journal to her chest. Thank you. Ruth squeezed her shoulder. Henry would have wanted this. He always said the truth has a way of surfacing. She smiled, sad and fierce. Like creek water in spring, you just have to wait for the thaw. The square smelled of fresh bread and horse sweat. Wagons lined the muddy street, farmers selling early spring vegetables, pale carrots, wrinkled potatoes saved from winter cellars. The sun climbed warm for the first time in months. Meredith moved between the stalls, Isaac and Lily Mae trailing. She needed flour, needed to make what little money she had stretch until the hearing. Vernon's voice carried across the square. Folks, a moment of your time. He stood on the courthouse steps, hat in hand. A crowd gathered, 20, 30 people. The blacksmith, the mill owner, farmers in mud-caked boots. Meredith froze. I know there's been talk, Vernon began. His voice was smooth, reasonable. About the Caldwell foreclosure. About my involvement. He paused, let the silence settle. I want to address it directly, because this town deserves the truth. Caleb emerged from the hardware store, stopped beside Meredith. His jaw tightened. Vernon continued. Thomas Caldwell was my brother-in-law. I loved him like blood. When he died, I did everything I could to help his widow. Extended credit, delayed payments, offered a generous settlement to spare her the shame of losing everything publicly. His expression turned sorrowful. She refused, and now, well, I'm concerned. Mrs. Dalton leaned toward Mrs. Henley, whispering. Others shifted, uncomfortable. Concerned, someone called out. Vernon nodded gravely. Meredith Caldwell is a grieving woman. Grief can affect judgment, make a person see conspiracy where there's only misfortune. He pulled a handkerchief from his pocket, dabbed his forehead. She's accused me of forgery, of theft, serious allegations, but when pressed for proof, she has none. Only paranoia. Meredith's hands curled into fists. And the children, Vernon went on. His voice dropped, heavy with false concern. Those poor babies, living in that cabin, barely fed, dragged through their mother's instability. It breaks my heart. He looked directly at Meredith across the square. A woman in that state. Perhaps the children would be better served in a more stable home, with family who can provide. The crowd murmured, eyes turned toward Meredith. Isaac pressed against her side. Lily Mae whimpered. Caleb's voice cut through the noise. That's enough, Vernon. Vernon. Vernon's gaze slid to the auctioneer. Mr. Thorne, I understand you've delayed Mrs. Caldwell's livestock sale. Out of sympathy, I'm sure, but delaying the inevitable only prolongs suffering. For her, for those children. The cattle were underweight. You know that. I know you've involved yourself in a matter that doesn't concern you. Vernon's tone hardened. The bank has been patient, but patience has limits. Meredith found her voice. It came out stronger than she expected. You're lying. The square went silent. She stepped forward, children clinging to her skirts. You forged my husband's deed, added your name where it didn't belong, and now you're trying to steal my land to cover your embezzlement. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Vernon's expression shifted, surprise, then cold fury, then back to sorrowful concern. You see? This is exactly what I'm talking about. Wild accusations, delusions. He addressed the crowd. I have documentation, legal records. She has conspiracy theories born of grief and desperation. I have proof, Meredith said. My husband's signature practice sheets, a witness journal, evidence that you weren't part of the original deed signing. Vernon laughed, soft, pitying. Signature practice sheets? That's your proof? Papers that could have been written anytime by anyone? He shook his head. Judge Cross will see through this charade. And when he does, those children will be placed with someone capable of caring for them properly. Something inside Meredith snapped. She climbed the courthouse steps, stopped 3 feet from Vernon. Her voice rang out clear and sharp. "You'll take my land over my dead body, but you won't touch my children." Vernon's mask slipped. For just a moment, she saw the rage beneath. His hand moved to his vest pocket. The watch. He didn't pull it out, just touched it. A tell. "We'll see," he said quietly. "April 20th. The judge will decide who's telling the truth." He descended the steps, brushed past her. The crowd parted. Mrs. Henley turned away. Others followed, but some stayed. The blacksmith met Meredith's eyes, gave a slight nod. A farmer she didn't know tipped his hat. Caleb climbed the steps, stood beside her. "You handled that right. Didn't let him corner you." "He threatened my children." "I know. And now the whole town knows it too." Caleb's voice was low. "Some of them will side with him. Fear does that, but others—" He gestured to the blacksmith, still watching. "Others just saw a rich man threaten a widow's babies. That doesn't sit well with working folks." Ruth appeared at the base of the steps, basket over her arm. "Meredith, come to my shop, both of you." They followed her across the square. Behind them, the crowd dispersed slowly, voices rising in debate. Ruth locked the mercantile door, flipped the sign to closed. She led them to the back room where Henry's trunk still sat open. "I found something else." Ruth's hands shook as she lifted a smaller journal. Leather-bound, pages yellowed. Henry's personal diary, not the business ledger, his private thoughts. She opened it to a marked page. "April 1885, 2 months after your deed was signed." Meredith leaned close. Caleb read over her shoulder. Ruth's finger traced the handwriting. "Vernon Haskell visited today, demanded I change my witness testimony, said I'd misremembered the Caldwell signing, that he was present and should be listed as co-proprietor." Ruth's voice steadied. "I refused, told him my record stands. He threatened to pull his accounts from my store. I told him to do it." She flipped the page. "And here, VH is dangerous. Not violent, but cunning. He's forging documents. I'm certain of it. I've made copies of every deed I've witnessed, hidden them in the store safe. If anything happens to me, Ruth will find them." Caleb straightened. "The store safe, not the trunk." Ruth crossed to the corner, moved a shelf aside. Behind it, a small iron safe was built into the wall. She spun the dial. Click, click, click. The door swung open. Inside, a stack of papers tied with ribbon. She pulled them out, untied the ribbon with trembling fingers, sorted through the sheets. "Caldwell, Section 14, February 18th, 1885. She lifted the document into the light. Meredith's breath stopped. 2 signatures, Thomas James Caldwell and Meredith Whitmore Caldwell, proprietors. The flourish on Thomas's C was perfect, unmistakable, and her maiden name, Meredith Whitmore, clear as day. At the bottom, witnessed by Henry Pemberton, February 18th, 1885, no Vernon, no co-proprietor clause. "This is it," Meredith whispered, "the original." Ruth's eyes shone with tears. Henry knew. He knew Vernon would try this, so he kept a copy, insurance against forgery. She pressed the document into Meredith's hands. "This is what Judge Cross needs to see." Caleb examined the paper, held it up to the window. "The ink's aged right, the signature matches your practice sheets, and Henry's witness mark is official, notarized by the territorial recorder." He looked at Meredith. "This'll stand up in court. Vernon's version will collapse the moment they compare the two." Meredith's knees weakened. She sank into a chair, clutching the deed. "We have proof." "We have more than proof," Ruth said. "We have Henry's testimony from beyond the grave. A man Vernon can't threaten or bribe or silence." Her voice hardened. "And when the judge sees this, Vernon will have to explain why his version exists at all." Caleb crossed his arms. "He'll claim clerical error, misfiling, bureaucratic confusion." "Then we show the practice sheets," Meredith said. "Show that Thomas's signature is distinctive, that Vernon's forged version doesn't match." "And Henry's diary," Ruth added, "documenting Vernon's attempt to coerce a witness, showing premeditation." The 3 of them looked at each other. The back room smelled of dust and old paper and something else. Possibility. Outside, rain began to fall. Soft, warm, the sound on the roof like a promise. Caleb spoke first. "We need to keep this safe. If Vernon finds out we have the original, he'll come for it." Ruth nodded. "I'll lock it in the safe. No one knows it's there except us." And we don't tell anyone," Meredith said. "Not until the hearing. Let Vernon think we're bluffing. Let him feel confident. Then we hit him in public, Caleb finished. In front of the judge. In front of the whole county. Ruth retied the document with ribbon, placed it back in the safe, spun the dial, moved the shelf back into place. April 20th, she said. Judge Cross arrives April 18th, holds court on the 20th. She looked at Meredith. 3 weeks? Can you hold on 3 more weeks? Meredith thought of Vernon's threat, of the children's hollow faces, of Thomas's careful signature, practiced until it was unmistakable. Yes, she said, we can hold on. The sun bled orange through the pines. Meredith stirred soup at the stove, real soup this time, with carrots Ruth had slipped into her basket at the mercantile. The smell of simmering vegetables filled the cabin, warm and almost hopeful. Isaac sat at the table, silent, too silent. Lily May played with her rag doll by the hearth, humming tunelessly, but Isaac stared at his hands, fingers knotted together. Isaac. Meredith set down the spoon. What's wrong? He didn't look up. Nothing. Don't lie to me. His jaw worked. He was Thomas's son, stubborn, loyal, terrible at hiding guilt. Finally, he reached into his pocket and pulled out something that caught the lamplight, Vernon's gold pocket watch. Meredith's breath stopped. Where did you get that? I took it. His voice was small. At the market, when he was talking on the steps, his coat was on the rail. I reached in and took it. She crossed to him, knelt. Why? Because. Tears welled in his eyes. Because he's bad. Because he's stealing from us and lying and trying to take you away. I wanted to hurt him, make him feel what we feel. His voice broke. I wanted him to lose something. Meredith took the watch from his hand. It was heavy, cold, the case engraved with initials VH. She turned it over. On the back, another engraving. First National Bank, Excellence in Service, 1884, a gift from the bank, before Vernon started stealing from it. Mama, I'm sorry, I know stealing's wrong, but you thought it was justice. He nodded miserably. She sat back on her heels, the watch in her palm. Outside, an owl called. The wind stirred the pines. She thought of Vernon's threats, his lies, the way he'd forged her husband's name, tried to steal her children's inheritance, and stood in the town square calling her unstable. Everything in her wanted to throw the watch into the stove, watch it melt, let Vernon search for it forever. But that wasn't who she was, and it wasn't who she wanted Isaac to become. Listen to me. She took his face in her hands. What Vernon's doing is wrong, truly wrong. But if we become like him, if we steal and lie to fight back, then we lose more than land. We lose ourselves. But it's not fair. No, it's not. Her voice was firm. Life rarely is. But we don't get to choose what others do, only what we do, and I won't let Vernon turn us into what he is. Isaac's tears spilled over. So we just let him win? No, we beat him the right way, with truth, with proof, with people like Ruth and Caleb standing beside us. She wiped his tears with her thumb. And when we win, and we will win, Vernon will know he lost to people who wouldn't compromise, who wouldn't stoop to his level. What if we don't win? The question hung in the air. Meredith pulled him close, his small body shaking against her chest. Then we still did it right. And you'll grow up knowing your mother didn't teach you to fight dirty, that some things matter more than winning. He sobbed into her shoulder. Lily May abandoned her doll, climbed onto Meredith's lap. She held both children, the watch heavy in her hand. Tomorrow, she said quietly, we're going to return this. Isaac pulled back. To him? To him, and you're going to apologize. Mama. No, her voice was steel wrapped in gentleness. You took something that wasn't yours, no matter who he is or what he's done. That's wrong, and we make it right. The fire crackled. Outside, darkness settled over the homestead. The watch ticked in her palm, steady, relentless. She thought of the hearing, 3 weeks away. This watch could be leverage, evidence of Vernon's embezzlement, maybe, with those bank initials engraved on the back, or a bargaining chip. But it was also a test of who she was, who her children would become. She made her choice. Tomorrow, she repeated, we do this right. Judge Emmett Cross's temporary office smelled of pipe tobacco and old leather. He'd arrived a day early, unusual for circuit court, and set up in a room above the land office. Meredith climbed the narrow stairs, Isaac at her side, Vernon's watch wrapped in cloth. The judge looked up from his paperwork. 67, silver-bearded, eyes sharp as broken glass. Mrs. Caldwell, Mr. Haskell said you might visit. Did he? Her voice was flat. Cross gestured to the chairs. Sit, both of you. Isaac perched on the edge of his seat. Meredith unwrapped the watch, placed it on the judge's desk. Cross's eyebrows rose. That's Vernon Haskell's. Yes, sir. My son took it. 3 days ago. We're returning it. The judge studied Isaac. You stole this? Isaac's voice came out barely a whisper. Mia. Yes, sir. Why? Because I was angry. Because Mr. Haskell is trying to take our house and I wanted to hurt him back. Tears streaked his face. But my mama says that's wrong, no matter what he did, so I'm sorry. Cross leaned back in his chair. The wood creaked. He picked up the watch, turned it over, examined the engravings. His expression was unreadable. Mr. Haskell filed a complaint, he said slowly. Said his watch was missing, implied it might have been stolen during the market day confrontation. He looked at Meredith. He didn't name you specifically, but the insinuation was clear. I didn't know about the theft until 2 days ago. Meredith's voice was steady. As soon as I found out, I brought Isaac here to make it right. Cross set the watch down. You could have said nothing, let him wonder. Used it as leverage, maybe. I assume you know about the foreclosure hearing scheduled for April 20th. I know. And you're returning the watch anyway? Yes, the judge steepled his fingers. Why? Meredith glanced at Isaac, then back to Cross. Because my son needs to learn that we don't become what we're fighting against. And because the truth is enough. If it's not, then a stolen watch won't save us. Silence filled the room. Outside, a wagon rattled past. Somewhere below, the land office clerk's voice droned through paperwork. Cross finally nodded. I'll return this to Mr. Haskell, with a note that your son confessed and apologized. He paused. That takes character, Mrs. Caldwell, more than most people have. Will it hurt us? At the hearing. No. If anything, Cross's expression softened. It tells me you're not the unstable woman Vernon's been describing around town. You're someone who values honor over advantage. He pulled a ledger toward him, made a notation. The hearing will proceed as scheduled. April 20th, 10 o'clock, livestock auction yard. I prefer public venues for property disputes. Keeps everyone honest. Mr. Haskell has been claiming I forged documents, that I have no proof. Do you have proof? Meredith met his eyes. Yes, sir, I do. Then bring it, all of it. I'll examine both sides and render judgment. He closed the ledger. Mrs. Caldwell, I've been circuit judge for 22 years. I've seen every kind of fraud, every kind of desperation. I'll tell you this, the truth tends to reveal itself when you put two stories side by side under daylight. He tapped the watch. This was a good first step. Isaac spoke up, voice trembling. Sir, will you let Uncle Vernon take us away from Mama? Cross's expression turned grave. Son, that's not his decision to make. It's mine, and I don't take children from their mothers lightly, not without damn good reason. He looked at Meredith. You bring your proof, let me see the facts, and we'll sort out who's telling the truth. Meredith stood. Thank you, Your Honor. Isaac rose too, his hand finding hers. At the door, Cross called after them. Mrs. Caldwell, one more thing. She turned. The auction yard holds about 200 people when it's full. This case has gotten attention. There'll be a crowd. His eyes were kind but firm. Are you prepared for that? For public scrutiny? For the whole county watching? She thought of the market day confrontation, the church steps, the women's circle closing ranks. She thought of Ruth's safe and the deed hidden inside it, of Thomas's signature, practiced until it was unmistakable. Yes, sir, I'm prepared. Good. Because once we start, there's no stopping until I've heard everything, no matter how ugly it gets. I understand. She descended the stairs, Isaac's hand tight in hers. Outside, the April sun broke through clouds. The street smelled of mud and new grass, spring rising from winter's bones. 3 weeks, in 3 weeks, the whole county would watch her fight for everything that mattered. And this time, she'd be ready. The auction yard smelled of fresh sawdust and morning dew. By 9 o'clock, 200 people filled the space. Farmers on benches, women standing at the rails, children perched on fence posts. The sun climbed warm, burning off the last of the spring fog. Meredith sat at a table facing the auction platform. Isaac and Lily Mae pressed close on either side. Behind her, Ruth and Caleb stood like sentinels. Vernon sat across the aisle alone. His suit was pressed, his hair oiled, but his eyes were hard, watchful. Judge Cross climbed the platform steps. His boots thudded on the wood. He carried a leather case, set it on the auctioneer's stand. Caleb's hammer lay beside it, cleaned, oiled, ready. This court is now in session, Cross's voice carried across the yard. The matter before us, foreclosure petition filed by First National Bank against the estate of Thomas Caldwell, disputed by widow Meredith Caldwell. The question is simple. Who holds rightful ownership of Section 14, Township 7 North? The crowd murmured. Cross raised a hand. Silence fell. Mr. Haskell, present your case. Vernon stood. He moved to the platform, placed a document on the stand. Your Honor, the facts are straightforward. Thomas Caldwell borrowed $1,400 in 1884. Payments fell into arrears. Upon his death, the debt transferred to his estate. The bank holds the note and a deed showing joint proprietorship between Thomas Caldwell and myself as cosigner. He tapped the paper. This deed is registered with the Territorial Land Office. Legal and binding. Cross examined the document. Mrs. Caldwell is not listed as proprietor. No, Your Honor. My brother-in-law handled the filing. His widow was not party to the original agreement. Meredith's hands clenched beneath the table. Ruth's hand touched her shoulder, steady, reassuring. Cross set the document aside. Mrs. Caldwell, your response. She stood. Her legs shook, but her voice came out clear. Your Honor, that deed is a forgery. My husband and I signed the original together. Both our names, my maiden name was included specifically. Thomas wanted it in writing that the land belonged to both of us for our children. Vernon smiled, pitying. Your Honor, my sister-in-law is grieving, understandably. But grief has clouded her memory. She has no proof of this alleged original deed, only accusations. I have proof, Meredith said. The crowd stirred. She reached into her satchel, pulled out the practice sheets, unfolded them on the stand. These are my husband's signature practice pages. He wrote his name dozens of times, perfecting the flourish. See this? She pointed to the distinctive upward sweep of the C in Caldwell. Every signature is identical, unmistakable. Cross leaned close, studying the pages. His finger traced the loops. Now look at Mr. Haskell's version. Meredith placed Vernon's deed beside the practice sheets. The C is different, flatter, more careful. This isn't my husband's handwriting. Vernon stepped forward. Your Honor, those practice sheets could have been created any time, by anyone. There's no proof Thomas wrote them. There's more, Meredith said. She looked at Ruth. Ruth moved to the platform, placed a leather journal on the stand. My late husband, Henry Pemberton, witnessed the original Caldwell deed signing on February 18th, 1885. This is his business journal. He documented every transaction, every contract he witnessed. She opened to the marked page. Here, February 18th. Witnessed deed signing, Caldwell Property, Section 14. Present, Thomas Caldwell, Meredith Whitmore Caldwell, Henry Pemberton. And a note, Vernon Haskell arrived late, attempted to witness but signing already complete, appeared agitated. The crowd erupted. Voices rose, shock, anger, excitement. Cross banged Caleb's hammer once. Order! Silence returned, brittle and charged. Vernon's face had gone pale. That journal is hearsay, unverified personal notes. My husband was a notary public, Ruth said coldly. His records were official, and he kept copies of every deed he witnessed, for exactly this reason. Cross straightened. Do you have such a copy, Mrs. Pemberton? I do, Your Honor. She reached into her satchel, slowly, deliberately. The crowd held its breath. Ruth pulled out the original deed, unfolded it, placed it on the stand beside Vernon's version. The silence was absolute. Cross lifted both documents, held them to the light. His eyes moved between them, line by line, word by word. The crowd waited. A meadowlark sang from the fence rail. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell chimed the hour. Finally, Cross spoke. These are not the same document. Vernon stood abruptly. Your Honor, that deed is inadmissible. Mrs. Caldwell has had months to fabricate. Sit down, Mr. Haskell. Vernon froze. Cross's voice had turned to iron. This document bears Henry Pemberton's official notary seal. Dated February 18, 1885, it lists two proprietors, Thomas James Caldwell and Meredith Whitmore Caldwell. He looked at Vernon. Your version lists you as co-proprietor. It omits Mrs. Caldwell's maiden name entirely. And the signature, he placed the practice sheets beside it. The signature doesn't match. Vernon's jaw worked. There must be some clerical error, a misfiling at the land office. I can explain, then explain. Cross's gaze was merciless. Explain why Henry Pemberton's journal notes that you arrived late and attempted to insert yourself into a signing that was already complete. Explain why your version of the deed erases Mrs. Caldwell's name. Explain why the handwriting doesn't match Thomas Caldwell's documented signature. The crowd leaned forward. Meredith's heart hammered against her ribs. Vernon's hand moved to his vest pocket, reached for his watch. His fingers found nothing. The color drained from his face. He looked down, patted his pocket again, empty. Looking for this? Cross held up the gold watch. Your property, returned to me by Mrs. Caldwell 3 days ago. Her son had taken it. She brought him here to confess and apologize. He set the watch on the stand. Even when she had leverage against you, she chose honesty. Vernon's mouth opened, closed. No words came. Cross leaned forward. Mr. Haskell, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I want you to answer it carefully, under oath. He gestured to Caleb. Place your hand on this ledger. It'll serve as Bible for now, and swear to tell the truth. Vernon's hand shook as he placed it on the leather-bound book. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is true and accurate, so help you God? I do. Did you forge Thomas Caldwell's signature on the deed filed with the Territorial Land Office? The silence stretched. A baby cried somewhere in the crowd. A horse stamped in the pen. Vernon's watch sat on the stand between them, not ticking. Meredith realized with a jolt. It had stopped. The hands frozen at 2:47. Vernon stared at the watch, at the frozen hands. His face had gone gray. Mr. Haskell, Cross repeated, did you forge that signature? Vernon's voice cracked. There were extenuating circumstances. The railway spur was coming. Thomas refused to sell. He was being irrational, emotional. I knew the land's value would triple. I thought... He stopped himself. You thought you'd steal it. I thought I'd preserve it. For the family, for his children. Vernon's mask crumbled. Desperation bled through. And yes, I needed the sale to cover temporary shortfalls at the bank. Investments that would have paid off if given time. But Thomas's stubbornness put everything at risk. So you forged his name, added yourself as co-proprietor, filed a false deed. Vernon's shoulders sagged. Yes. The word fell like a stone down a well. The crowd erupted, shouts, angry, vindicated. The blacksmith stood, fists clenched. Mrs. Dalton covered her mouth. Mrs. Henley turned away, face flushed. Cross banged the hammer 3 times. The sound cracked across the yard like gunshots. Order! I will have order. Silence returned slowly, reluctantly. Cross gathered both deeds, the journal, the practice sheets. He stacked them carefully. The evidence is clear. The deed filed by Vernon Haskell is fraudulent. The original deed, witnessed by Henry Pemberton and bearing the signatures of both Thomas and Meredith Caldwell, is the legal document of record. He looked at Meredith. Mrs. Caldwell, the foreclosure petition is dismissed. The land remains your property, free and clear. Her breath left in a rush. Isaac grabbed her hand. Lily May buried her face in her mother's skirt. Behind her, Ruth's hand squeezed her shoulder. Caleb's voice rumbled. Justice. Cross wasn't finished. He turned to Vernon. Mr. Haskell, you have confessed under oath to forgery, fraud, and embezzlement of bank funds. I am remanding you into territorial custody pending a full audit of First National Bank's accounts. Sheriff Reeves? A man in a badge stepped forward from the crowd. He moved toward Vernon, iron shackles in hand. Vernon didn't resist. His eyes were hollow, empty. As Reeves locked the shackles, Vernon looked across at Meredith. I was trying to help. You have to believe that. Thomas was my family. You wanted his land, Meredith said quietly, and you were willing to destroy his children to get it. Vernon had no answer. Reeves led him away. The crowd parted. Whispers followed him, damning, final. Cross lifted Caleb's hammer high. By the authority vested in me by Montana Territory, I hereby declare the Caldwell Homestead, Section 14, Township 7 North, 160 acres, to be the sole and rightful property of Meredith Whitmore Caldwell. He brought the hammer down, once, twice, 3 times. The sound echoed across the yard, final, absolute. Sold, Cross said, to the rightful owner. The crowd erupted, cheers this time. The blacksmith applauded. Farmers stomped their boots. Even Mrs. Dalton clapped, though she wouldn't meet Meredith's eyes. Meredith stood frozen. Isaac threw his arms around her waist. Lily Mae climbed into her lap. Ruth embraced them all from behind, tears streaming down her face. Caleb climbed the platform, took the hammer from Cross. He held it up, not in triumph, but in acknowledgement. Justice done. Truth upheld. The sun broke through the clouds. Warm light spilled across the auction yard, across the faces of 200 witnesses, across Meredith's children laughing through tears. She looked at the original deed on the stand. Thomas's signature. Her maiden name. Both their names together, exactly as it should be. "We did it," Isaac whispered. "Mama, we won." She kissed the top of his head. "Yes, baby, we won." But as she looked at Vernon's frozen watch on the stand, hands stopped at 2:47, the moment his oath collapsed, she thought, no. The truth won. And that was better than anything. The territorial auditor's boots echoed on marble. Mr. Pruitt, reinstated as clerk, unlocked the vault, his hands steadier than they'd been in months. Meredith stood by the door, Ruth beside her. They weren't required to be here, but they'd come anyway, to witness. The auditor was a lean man with wire spectacles and ink-stained fingers. He'd spent 5 days combing through ledgers, comparing entries, following money trails that twisted like creek beds through dry season. "Mrs. Caldwell." He looked up from a ledger spread across Vernon's desk. "You have a right to know. The embezzlement totals $4,200, taken over 18 months, moved between accounts to hide the shortfalls." Meredith's breath caught. 4,000. Most of it went to bribing railway officials, securing advance knowledge of the spur route. He planned to buy up land along the corridor, flip it for triple the price once the route was announced publicly. The auditor removed his spectacles, cleaned them. "Your homestead was the linchpin, junction point. Without it, his entire scheme collapsed." Ruth's hand found Meredith's, squeezed. "The territorial governor has issued a warrant," the auditor continued. "Vernon Haskell will stand trial in Helena, forgery, fraud, embezzlement. He's looking at 10 years minimum, possibly 15. Pruitt spoke from the vault doorway. "What happens to the bank?" "Territorial seizure, assets liquidated to repay depositors. You'll be retained as interim manager, Mr. Pruitt, until a new charter can be issued." The auditor closed the ledger. "Mrs. Caldwell, there's one more thing. The railway spur is real. It's coming through your section, but now that the route's public knowledge, you'll receive fair market value if you choose to sell an easement. Approximately $800 for the right-of-way." $800. More money than Meredith had seen in her life. "The land stays," she said. "But I'll sell the easement. My children need a future." The auditor nodded. "I'll have the railway agent contact you. It'll be a legal transaction this time. Proper contracts. Witnesses." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "I suspect Judge Cross will insist on overseeing it personally." Outside, the April sun warmed the street. Mud had dried to dust. The first lilacs bloomed in Ruth's window boxes, purple and fragrant. "Coffee?" Ruth asked. "On me," Meredith smiled. "On you." They walked toward the mercantile, arms linked. Behind them, through the bank's window, Pruitt began the long work of rebuilding trust. The town would heal, slowly. But it would heal. The garden smelled of turned earth and possibility. Meredith knelt in the furrow, Isaac beside her, pressing bean seeds into soil still cool from winter. Lily Mae followed with a watering can, her small hands careful not to spill. The cabin stood solid behind them, roof patched with new shingles, door rehung, windows scrubbed until they gleamed. Caleb's work. He'd appeared every Sunday for the past 3 weeks, wagon loaded with lumber and nails, saying little but mending what winter and cruelty had broken. Today, he was here again, hammering new boards onto the porch rail. The sound rang clear, rhythmic, honest. Ruth's wagon appeared on the ridge. She climbed down with a basket, bread, still warm, wrapped in checkered cloth. She set it on the porch rail, then walked to where Meredith knelt. "I brought something else." Ruth pulled a wooden frame from her apron pocket. New pine, freshly sanded. For the deed, the old frame was cracked. Meredith took it, ran her fingers over the smooth wood. "It's beautiful." "Caleb made it. I just delivered it." Ruth smiled. "He's shy about gifts." Across the yard, Caleb's hammer paused. His ears had gone red. Meredith stood, brushing dirt from her skirt. She carried the frame inside, Ruth following. The deed lay on the table where she'd left it that morning. Unframed, vulnerable. She placed it carefully in the new frame. The glass was clear, uncracked, and beneath Thomas's signature in fresh ink, she'd added her own name in her own hand. Meredith Whitmore Caldwell, owner. Not widow, not dependent. Owner. Ruth helped her hang it above the mantel. The deed caught the light streaming through clean windows. 2 names, 2 signatures, equal. Thomas would be proud, Ruth said quietly. I hope so. Meredith's throat tightened. I hope he knows we kept it, that his children will grow up here, same as he planned. Outside, Isaac's laughter rang across the garden. Lily Mae chased a butterfly, arms outstretched. Caleb had set down his hammer, was showing Isaac how to measure a board, his large hands guiding the boy's small ones. Ruth touched Meredith's shoulder. He's good with them. I know. And he's been here every Sunday. I know that too. Meredith allowed herself a small smile. But it's too soon. For everything. I need time to be just me. Just us. Time's one thing you have now. Ruth moved toward the door. But don't take forever. Good men don't wait indefinitely. Is that advice or observation? Ruth's eyes twinkled. Both. She descended the porch steps, called goodbye to the children, climbed into her wagon. The wheels creaked as she turned toward town. Caleb finished the rail, tested its strength. Satisfied, he gathered his tools. I'll be back next Sunday. Thought I'd start on the barn door. It's hanging crooked. You don't have to. I know. His eyes met hers, steady, patient. But I'd like to, if that's all right. Meredith thought of Thomas, of the love they'd built in this place, and she thought of the future, uncertain but hers to shape. It's all right, she said. We like that. Caleb nodded, tipped his hat, climbed into his wagon. As his wheels faded down the road, Isaac ran up, dirt streaking his face. Mama, can we stay here forever? She pulled him close. Lily Mae joined them, butterfly forgotten. They stood together on the new porch, the strong rail at their backs, the garden spreading green before them. Forever and a day, Meredith said, and meant it. By May, the frost had forgotten the land, and the land had forgiven the frost. Meredith Caldwell knelt in soil that smelled of rain and new growth, her hands black with earth, her children's laughter rising like birdsong behind her. The homestead stood solid, not perfect but whole, windows clear, door straight, roof sound against the weather. Caleb Thorne's wagon appeared on Sundays now, regular as clockwork. He'd mend a fence, replace a board, teach Isaac how to hold a hammer. He didn't say much, didn't need to. The work spoke for him, steady hands building what had been broken. Ruth brought bread still warm from the oven. She'd stay for tea, watch the children play, tell stories about Henry that made them laugh. The mercantile thrived. Folks trusted Ruth, always had, but now they trusted her even more. Keeper of truths, guardian of records that mattered. Inside the cabin, above the mantel, the deed hung in its new frame, no crack in the glass. 2 names, clear as spring water. Thomas James Caldwell and Meredith Whitmore Caldwell. Owner, she'd added her name herself. Not because the law required it, but because she could. Because the land was hers, earned through truth, held through courage, kept through the simple stubbornness of refusing to become what she fought against. Vernon's watch sat in a Helena evidence locker, its hands frozen at 2:47. Some said you could still hear it ticking if you listened close, a ghost of time that had run out. But Meredith didn't listen for ghosts anymore. She listened for robins, for Isaac's questions about planting depth, for Lily Mae humming as she scattered seeds, for Caleb's hammer and Ruth's footsteps on the porch. Spring had come. And with it, the lesson every hard winter teaches. That land doesn't care who holds the paper, it cares who works the soil, who plants in faith, who stays when staying is hardest. Ink can lie, signatures can be forged, deeds can be stolen, but dirt tells the truth. And those who tend it, who sink their hands deep and plant for tomorrow, they're the ones who own it. Not in law alone, but in something older. Something that survives courts and judges and men with gold watches. The land remembers who loves it. And love, Meredith had learned, was the only deed that mattered. She stood, brushed soil from her skirt, looked toward the horizon, not watching for trouble anymore, watching for rain, for the future, pressing up through furrows like green shoots through dark earth. Behind her, Isaac called out. He'd found a robin's nest in the barn eaves, 3 blue eggs perfect and whole. Meredith smiled, turned toward her children's voices, toward the cabin with its straight door and clear windows, toward the sound of Caleb's wagon cresting the ridge, right on time. Spring, new growth, second chances, the land had forgiven the frost, and so had she.